You're watching Morning at NTV.
Good morning to you. If you're just joining us, this is Morning at NTV, and you can communicate with us, engage with us on the hashtag on Twitter, Morning at NTV. And today the big topic is on communication. Communication is quite wide, so today we'll be focusing on communication in the workplace. We sampled some of the views of the informal sector. Chamagero is in downtown, and he gave us some of their views. What is communication to them in the informal sector? How do they communicate amongst themselves in that shop, with their employers, with the customers, with the suppliers? And we established that success can only be achieved if communication, is seamless, if it's effective. And today in studio, I have Anne Muhanji, who is a communication expert. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Communication is big.
It is big.
Especially when it comes to determining the success or the failure of an entity or organization. And it's not just communication, but effective communication. So what is effective communication?
Effective communication is, how would I put it? To be able to reach somebody. It goes back to emotional intelligence. How are you able to get the information that that person you want that person to get? How are you able to make them understand what you're talking about, and therefore translate it? If it is in production, if it is in a task, translate it to that thing that you want them to do. So it has to be very simple. It has to be understood. It has to be communicated in such a way that that person owns it, in terms of language, in terms of words. So effective communication is wide, but simply for someone to actually understand what you're trying to tell them.
So understanding is a key aspect.
Is a key word, not just hearing, but understanding.
So that's a key thing, eh?
Yes.
Not hearing, but understanding.
Yes.
But whose role then is it to make sure that, channels are put in place in an organization or even in a small business, so that employees know, in case something happens, this is how we communicate in this shop, like the cultures, communication systems, and the faces that need to be taken. Who is in charge of setting up that?
I think first it goes back to the culture. Before even we talk about the person who sets it up, it goes back to the culture. What is the culture of the organization? Is it open management? Is it the top-bottom kind of management? Where if it's open, I can be able to knock at the MD's door, probably knock and just walk in anytime. And usually in that kind of environment, communication is very easy, both horizontally and vertically. However, if it is top-bottom, it has to have a certain hierarchy, it has to have a red tape, it has to have a certain bureaucracy. And that is what keeps communication a bit steep. So who sets it up is the leadership. The person either who owns the business, the HR expert in the house, is it the culture? But then the systems can be set up by anyone in management or the leadership.
Now, fine. If now the leader actually sets up the culture and the systems of communication, then what should they, factor in to ensure that the employees actually understand that this is the system in place and this is how you go about, communicating amongst your peers and also, the top-bottom kind of communication? How do they make sure that the employees actually understand and they implement that system?
First, let the employees have a buy-in. Because most people think, I am employing you, I will only tell you what you're going to do. Sell the vision to me as an employee. Tell me why I am here, what is expected of me, and what is it that I bring on the table. When the employees buy in the vision, when the employees own the system, they own the organization, they own why we are here if we are working, then communication is easy. That way you'll tell them, this is what we're up to. This is why we are communicating. Just don't tell them, if you want something, just write a memo. Because people are so used to writing memos, to writing emails, and all those things. But when someone understands, why do I need to communicate? Why do I need my peers to understand my work? Why do I need my bosses to understand me? Why do I need everyone else around me to know what is going on? Have a buy-in, sit them down, tell them what it's all about and why they need to communicate. And then, therefore, you'll have easy communication. It will be very easy for everybody to communicate from one person to another.
And do you feel that inducting new employees in an organization is key, especially when it comes to you wanting to pin down the aspect of communication, effective communication within the new employees?
It is very key, and that's why you have orientation in organizations. And some people just have an orientation of 1 week, 2 weeks. I actually agree with organizations that go on for an orientation for about a whole month.
A whole month?
Telling you why we are doing this thing, how we do our thing. This is our culture. Remember, communication is a soft skill. And even if this new employee comes in with an A+ or upper class degree, they are an expert, they need to know what is the culture in this organization. And in my position, who are the key people that I'll be communicating to? They need to have that. And it is very important, because when you don't, then that is why they will enter an organization and they get lost, they get confused, and therefore productivity levels will be very low.
Correct. Now, there's this sensitive topic on conflict in the workplace.
Yes.
How would you advise people to go about, resolving conflict in the workplaces, especially be it amongst the employees or the top-bottom kind of hierarchy?
I think, first of all, let's talk about what we call emotional deposits.
Okay.
In our workplaces, we've had so many people emphasize mental intelligence. You come in with your highest grades, you're smart, and that's it. But mostly we have competent jacks in offices because they're only skilled academically, they're only skilled technically, but they have no people management skills, they have no all the other soft skills of negotiation, conflict management, communication, talk about it. And therefore, if we're going to talk about conflict management, you have to go back to build a team. When you're building a team, you have to teach them about behavioral skills, behavioral competences. When I'm amongst my peers, how do I treat them? How do I communicate? And when we go back to conflict management, like I told you, it's about emotional deposits. It's about emotional intelligence. So if you emphasize emotional intelligence and emotional deposits, if I come into work, I greet you every morning with a smile. We sit together, we have teamwork, we know what we are all about. It will be easy if we have conflict and we sit down on the table, we put it on the table and say, you know what, this is what you did, this is you did wrong, I think this is... The way you communicate to somebody matters a lot. However, if I can't reach that person that I am conflicting with, that is it. If I can't sit on the table and have that discussion and have that conversation, it will be very difficult to solve conflict.
But it actually happens on a day-to-day basis. So how would someone go about it? You have a conflict with someone, that person is unapproachable, that person doesn't want to listen to what you say, then what next?
I think what you need to do is probably get their peers. Everyone has that person they listen to. Everyone has that person they respect. If it is your boss and probably they're difficult and unapproachable, get a peer, go and talk to them. If it's probably through an HR process, go there. But I highly advise that before you engage the very formal things, going to the HR, writing a letter, can you be able to approach that person? And sometimes like I said, it goes back to emotional deposits. If I've done something wrong to you, and I think probably you're difficult to approach, I'll use softer means to approach you. Probably I'll make you a cup of tea the first thing I see you in the morning. Probably I'll be complimenting you, you're very smart. Probably I'll be at my best if you're my boss to do my work, so that by the time I come to talk to you, I've already softened the ground. And that way you're able to listen to me.
Okay.
And I think it's important that coming on headstrong doesn't solve conflict. You need to use the softer means.
But there are people who are just difficult. In life, not everyone will like you.
That is true. Yes.
So you walk into a place, for example, if you're a new employee or someone who you've been staying in that environment for quite some time, but there's this just one person whose mission is to frustrate you.
Everyone.
How then do you go about it? Do you just ignore and move on and do your thing? Or how do you go about it? How would you advise someone at home to go about it? Because this is something that happens on a daily,
I think first of all is to remain as civil as possible. Because most people, when they have conflict, then they have the silence. Silence is also communication.
Okay.
They'll have the silent treatment, then they will be violent probably, or they will just not care, or they will ignore. I think the most important, first be as civil. If that person is unapproachable, it's very difficult. Go ahead, greet them, find if you're supposed to report to them nicely, make sure that everything is civil. That is the first thing. And then secondly, there is no one who can resist good treatment over time. I'll give you a story. There is this girl, she was very pretty, very smart, but she was one of those people that they say she's very difficult. And at one time, there was a project to do together, and everyone was dreading to work with her. And we said, what do we do? As a team, we sat down and we laid out a strategy. For the next 1 week, every time we see her, we're going to do something good. We're going to take her for lunch, we're going to dine her, we're going to tell her you're smart, we're going to do everything. In about 2 weeks, we had gotten her to our side. So I think it's not about the other person. It is about you, like I always say. Because if you say the other person is unapproachable, what about you? It means that you cannot approach people.
So you also have an ego?
Then you also have an ego. So you're also being difficult. So it's always about you. How do you, if the other person is not being civil, go ahead and be civil. If the other person does not know how to use the softer means of living life, go ahead and find those softer means to reach out to people. No one resists that.
Okay.
Yes.
No one resists.
No one. Every human being, you will find something soft to touch.
Okay.
Yes.
I think, how about touching on the roles of team building? Because it's a big thing in corporate institutions.
Yes.
Is it really effective, spending this big budget just to make sure that people come and have fun on one day and they go back to normal things?
You know, it's funny.
Is it effective?
I do team buildings
Yes.
for organizations. And the notion of having fun is not team building. Most organizations think, I'm going to take my team, we're going to take a few drinks and do barbecue and we scream and we've bonded. Yes. However, the underlying issues will be there.
Yes.
The team building that I recommend is the one that emphasizes behavioral competences. How do we communicate as a team? How do we solve conflict? How do we talk to ourselves? How do we manage ourselves? How do we conquer the public issues that we have? And usually emphasize the person. And when you do team building, yes, it is effective. Yes, it is a good thing because the technical bit only gets you into the door of the organization.
Correct.
It is your soft skills that sustains you in that organization, in your workplace, with people, with networks. Nothing else. I don't care whether you're going to be a PhD, but if you do not know how to communicate, you do not know how to negotiate, you can't solve conflict, at some point you fall. So yes, it is very effective. However, it is important that it is sustainable, that it is continuous. Organizations should have life coaches. They should have someone who is resident, whether on a permanent basis or not, to always come up with all these solutions. Organizations should have a continuous way of bonding the team, a continuous way of telling them these things. How do you communicate? On a monthly basis, can you have an expert come in and talk about such issues? And many of us, you'll find that we do not know how to communicate. And people get, actually when you do the team building and you talk about these things, people are like, wow. Because all I thought, I have to come, I'm an engineer, I do my work,
Yes.
I do it well, I don't have to talk to anybody. And yet you have to talk for your engineering work to go ahead.
Correct.
So yes, team building is effective, and I recommend that organizations start thinking about it more often.
Okay.
Yes.
On the flip side, let's talk about, communication between an organization and its customers. How important is having effective communication between an organization and your customers?
I usually want to use examples. That if the organization, imagine if NTV is doing all these good things and no one is seeing them, are you relevant?
No.
So effective communication from organizations to customers to the public is very key, because then it is the torch. It is the one that shows people that hey people, this is what I am doing. And of course, if it is bad communication, if information is not taken out, and that is the issue we have in Uganda, most of our public offices do not talk about what is going on. Whether it is a challenge or not, talk about it. Inform me. Tell me NTV is going to be off from 8 to 12. That alone makes I have a buy-in. So it is very important that for communication goes out. In what manner? Each organization has different ways. Either is it newspapers, whatever it is, but it has to go out. And customers need to know what is going on. What is it that you're doing? They'll have a buy-in. They will support you, and they'll be positive about what you do.
Okay, talk about communication, like organization and client communication. And we're talking about organizations that not just deal in services, but in products. How important is, the customer communication? How important is it to make sure that actually the organization thrives?
When you're talking about products, I think it's if I have buy-in about your product, you see, when I'm buying a product, it's not so much about the product. It's about trust. It's about communication.
Correct.
It is how I respect that organization. And the moment I don't care whether you have the best product on the house. So when you have a client, it is very important that you buy their trust. It is very important for the client to know that you have the best interest for them. It is very important that you're trying your best always to go out and find out if something is faulty. And therefore, communication is so much about trust. And for your clients to be able to buy in or to have your products, to buy them, to support them, trust is important. And trust can only be built through communication.
Through communication.
Yes.
But then how do you build that trust? Fine, it's through communication. But I'm sure you've walked into places to purchase and spend your money on services and products.
Yes.
But you're treated like you're being done for a favor.
I know. First of all, when you walk in a place, the body language, it is a first communication that we get. How you look at someone, how you stand, the first body language. If I walked in a shop and someone looked me up and down, believe me, I would not spend my hard-earned money on them. No, I wouldn't.
What if it's something that you really needed and they're the only people who sell it?
I would not, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's about trust, it's about respect.
Correct.
So your body language, how are you welcoming? How do you have, what do you wear? A smile. And you know that a smile communicates 1,000 things.
True.
We've done a study before. You go on the street and smile at a stranger, and by the way, they smile back. They do not know why they're smiling, but because it is infectious.
Yes.
And then if you go out there, we did that same study at the same time, and you're all gloomy, someone looks at you and like, what's up with you?
Yeah.
So it is important that your body language is key. That is the first point of contact. And then the words that you use. Are they encouraging? Are they inspiring? Are they positive? And you know, sometimes clients were very difficult.
Yes.
We throw tantrums.
Yeah.
You know, how could you do all these things? At that time, how you communicate, the words that come out of your mouth in the next few seconds will tell that client whether to buy your products or not. And especially if this is a long-term client, they've been using your products for a long time. So your words have to be, and that's why it is important that the customer care people, the people who interface with clients, are trained on how to speak, what words to say, what things to avoid. For example, you can't tell a client, I can't. Means I can't do it, it's impossible.
Yes.
That makes somebody mad. Tell them, let me see what I can do for you. Please have a seat. That is encouraging. That is hope. You're giving me hope. And therefore, I'll be positive. But if you tell me it is impossible, I'll throw a tantrum.
But do you think it's something that happens? Do you think it's something that employers take seriously, training their employees on how to handle clients?
I think there are very few, but organizations are embracing that a lot more, especially those that have continuous services, telecoms, banks. I think they've invested a lot. But in our private sector, there are very few, and that needs to be improved because it's all about communication. It's all about networks. It's how you reach the public. The private sector, because it's expensive. You train someone today, and then in 3 months they've gone. And then you have to do it all over again. And someone is thinking, if I put so much in human resource, what is it that I'm going to put in other places? So the private sector has to think about training these people on how to communicate, how to get information to people out there, especially even if you have a little shop. I'm not advertising, but there's a certain restaurant here in Kampala where you go and you know that in the next 15 minutes you'll have your meal and someone will be checking on you. So people do not go there so much because of probably their meals, but it's because of how they are treated.
How they're treated.
Yes.
But when it comes to the aspect of training, there's also the aspect of following up on your employees on a day-to-day basis. And this is something that many organizations feel that, you know what, it's expensive to hire someone to do a follow-up on the training they did initially. Then what should you advise organizations, even SMEs, to do in terms of following up with their employees to make sure they're still, you know, implementing what they were taught?
One, I think, have a resident person who is in charge. It may not be the person who is technical in that position. It may not actually be the HR. Probably if you have departments, have a team leader or someone else who is, there is usually that person who understands the team have that someone who always interfaces with the team. 2, let it not be just about work. Like I said, if you have on a monthly basis people coming in and talking to them, or even you having weekly meetings and not talking about the technical things of work, but saying, people, how can we improve our conflict management? And you have that conversation just in 1 hour. I think it helps a lot. Let them have someone resident who's always doing that. However, for those that have a bit of money, they can always have this person come in, probably on a quarterly basis, assessing, making assessments, seeing how far you've gone, giving them tests on how they have done several things. I have had one organization saying, go and test it out. You go in one of their shops, they have several shops, you go and you're a stranger, they do not know that you've actually come to test what you have been trained on, and you report back. So there are several ways in which to do it.
Okay.
But I think the simplest and probably the cheaper one is having a resident
Having
person.
someone in-house to do
In-house,
the follow-ups.
To do the follow-ups, and that is their role, not
Oh, and
amongst
that
others.
is their role.
And that is their role.
So hiring someone
Specifically for that.
Yes, like a designated trainer who
Trainer
is employed there.
Who is employed there, or on a permanent basis or temporary basis. Probably say, I will come in every Thursday and do this thing. And that way, everyone will know that if I need to know soft skills, if I have a problem, let me go to that resident life coach or whoever it is, or an HR person to be able to help.
We know employee engagement is a big factor when it comes to how your employees will then treat your customers. Then what is your advice for both the SMEs and big organizations when it comes to how they engage their employees? How important is it?
I think first have open management system. The bureaucracy, it kills morale. It kills, if I come in front of you and I am in fear, I'm not confident about what I'm going to say because you're going to scream, I will not be at my best. People are at their best when they are comfortable, when they are confident. So having an open management system opens up doors. I can be able to come in your office and say, this is the report I did, but I think there's something missing, and we have that discussion. I think that is the first point of engagement. Can I be able to call you by your first name and it is well? Can I be able to come in and tell you everything that I have? Because some other times when you're engaging employees, it is about what is it that you have not done. But can I create and come and tell you all these things that I have off my head and it is okay? Can I have that kind of engagement? So an open management system is a good way to engage employees. Go around and tell them, how are you doing? Do not sit in your big chair and say, I'm the boss and
Correct.
I'm expecting. Most people think, let people come to me, go out to them. That engagement is key.
And do you think weekly meetings, or however frequent they want it, do you think having meetings with your employees is important?
It is very important, but sometimes these meetings are very formal, and it's about telling me what to do or talking down at me, and what we are not doing right and things like that. So yes, I will come in the meeting, I will sit, I will listen in, and I will go out and do other things. I think the engagement is about, like I say, the softer things in life produce best results. Can we sit and have a conversation? Probably you can say, today we're going to have a couple of tea, we're going to have tea with you people, and we have tea, and just tell them what is going on. Let's have a conversation. Make it soft. Yes, meetings are key, but don't make them the formal meetings.
Yes.
Make them, probably even, I've known an organization where they have called it the coffee space. So we're going to the coffee space. The fact that that name is a coffee space, someone comes when they're open-minded.
Yes.
But when you say we're having a meeting, I'm thinking, okay, we're having a meeting. So I'll carry my books and all those technical things.
Yes.
And that will kill. If you're trying to tell me about communication and other soft skills, yeah, it will kill my morale.
So changing the structure how weekly meetings are done.
How they are done, who engages, how you talk to them is very key.
That's key. That's key, because I feel in many organizations there are these weekly meetings, and in some departments there are daily meetings.
Yes.
But in most of these meetings, actually, people digress. Then how can people ensure that in those meetings, as much as they will ensure that guys come open-minded, there's tea and all these things, how do they make sure that actually meetings obtain the goals and they don't digress?
I think seek their opinion, engage them, tell them why the meeting is on, what is the solution, what are we trying to solve? Because sometimes you go into these meetings and you do not know, yes, there are weekly updates, but
there has to be a goal.
There has to be a goal. So what is the end result? If you tell me that, Anne, we're going for this meeting, and at the end of the day, we're going to produce this book. So the end result is we are producing this book.
Yes.
I will go to that meeting and I will be excited because I have the vision of the book in my head. But if it's just vague and it's about updates and these things never go anywhere, I will always come in, I'll be present, but probably I will not be mentally present. I'll not be that creative because I do not know the end result. You've not communicated why we are there, what we're going to do, and how to be, what is it that we're going to produce. Yes.
So every meeting has to have an agenda.
An agenda that is specific and to keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
I think most of the productive time in Uganda is spent in meetings. Anything that is beyond 30 minutes is no longer a meeting, it's a workshop.
It's a workshop.
Yeah, so you find people that are in meetings 3 hours. It's not a meeting, that is a workshop. For Christ's sake, we need to move away from meetings and do.
Correct.
And do.
Correct.
So I think communication is not always in meetings. So we have these meetings, and yes, it goes back. We have so many workshops, so many seminars, but where are the results? When we've discussed, I need to have that result. Can we do?
Yes. So putting timelines to those.
Yes.
And once you've achieved, your goal, make sure you follow up on the implementation bit of it.
And I think for me, the follow-up is where is that book? This is what we say. This is the book I want to see.
Yes, do we have the book?
Yes, but most people spend a lot of time in the process of the production of the book. So you discuss the process and you discuss it again. By the time the book comes out, okay, no one wants to know.
Yeah.
Because they're so tired. They have been in the process for so long, they've even forgotten how the book looks like.
Correct.
How the end result looks like.
Wow. Yeah. And there's this aspect in organizations, the supplier. Communication between the organization and the supplier. How important is that? Because I feel like many organizations don't look at it seriously.
I think one, yes, suppliers in Uganda, they have something else. However, that's why I'm laughing. I think the most important is expectations. Can we sit and have those expectations spelled out? You are going to supply 1, 2, 3, 4 things.
Yes.
These are the timelines. And for Christ's sake, can you sign something and hold that supplier to book?
Yes.
Because most times I tell you, I need a phone produced, and I've not told you how long and all those things. And also there should be consequences. For example, if you say you're going to produce this book in 1 week and you don't bring it, can I be able to say, if you don't bring it in one book, I'm going to take 5% of the production cost of you? That supplier will bring.
So having a contract.
Having a contract, having timelines, but also discussing the expectation from your side and from his side. This is what I expect from you, and these are my expectations from this side. Wow. That is very important to be discussed.
Wow. Thank you so much, Anne Muhanji, for coming in studio.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've learned a tip or two, on how to embrace effective communication in your organizations, in your small business. It's very important. Effective communication is the only right ticket to success. I have Flavia on standby. Flavia? Flavia? Flavia, can you hear me? Okay, Flavia will be coming to you shortly. She will be talking about Mother's Day, the role that mothers play in society, in our families, and what to do to celebrate them, not just on Mother's Day, but on a day-to-day basis. And she'll be coming up after this short break. Hello, Flavia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mala. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very wonderful. This morning you shared with me that as a working mother, you are tired. There's just so much expectation and responsibility on you. And I was glad because today on Take Note, I have a mother, a working woman, who's sharing with us a solution she might have for us women to come together and get our own tailor-made solution for a modern woman. That's all after the break.